Hello and welcome everybody to Pokemon Master Class Podcast, episode number 17. Justin,
17. We're getting 17. Up there, aren't we?
Yeah, we are getting up there, dude. It's just a matter of time before we hit episode 100, man. We'll be there before you know it.
There we go. A couple more years, I guess. So this episode, we're going to talk about team building. It's not necessarily going to be for singles or VGC. It's kind of everything. We're just going to be talking about because we've been going over some squads and everything in our off camera, getting ready for Series 11 to come back around. It just launched this week. And we're going to be basically, we had a conversation. I kind of brought it up to Brandon off camera and was like, we've been building a lot of teams, and I just found it really interesting that some of the things are pretty similar, but our approach to building teams often in the PMC crew, like everybody's got their own kind of style. Yeah. So we want to talk about that today and kind of maybe if you're a little bit new, whether it's singles, VGC, the 3v3 ladder, we definitely have some insight here and kind of how we do it, and maybe that'll help you. If we've had some comments before asking about some team building stuff, so that's what today's going to be about.
Yeah.
Before we get into that, Brandon, what's going on, buddy?
Oh, not much. We are here in Michigan, as you guys know. If you can't tell, it's really cold because I'm wearing my Bengals hat. We had our first snowfall. It didn't stick, but we had our first snowfall in Michigan last night. There were some big chunks up by you, Justin. Justin lives about 20 to 30 minutes north of me. But you had some big chunky snow up there, didn't you, man?
We definitely did. Looks like the grass is freezer burnt this morning.
Yeah. We had
pretty much all melted now, but it's still cold.
Yep. We had an exciting weekend of football here in Michigan. For anyone who watches college football, we had Michigan versus Michigan State. It was tragic.
Unfortunate. Yeah. Unfortunate that the Stadies won, but it was close. It's because they were in East Landfill, so they had the home field advantage.
Yeah. Yeah, Harbaugh needs to go, man. This was the game. Like I've been like, sorry everybody, we're gonna talk about sports for a second. I've always kind of like been on, like I was on the Harbaugh train for a while, and then he keeps losing to all the rival teams. I think he's 2-9 against rival teams now.
He's just dropping the ball. Like he's no pun intended. Like it.
Yeah. Like. It's and this was like the straw that broke the camel's back because
absolutely because they had no business losing that.
No, they didn't. This has been like these last couple of years has been the time to win the Big Ten. Like Ohio State. This is the time
to flex and show our stuff.
Yep.
And he's not. And it's consistent. He's just not showing up when he needs to, and it's like that's literally your job.
Yep, Ohio State.
By definition, that's your one job.
Yeah, Ohio State, they changed head coaches, still can't beat them. Michigan State goes out and gets...
That was tragic, too.
They get Mel Tucker. Nobody. No, who is Mel Tucker? And why is he 2-0 against Harbaugh? Why?
Exactly.
Why is he... You know what I mean? Yeah. So anyway.
Who is this no-name out of left field? Get out of here.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's going to be happening. And it's just... I don't know if he's cracking under pressure or if he's just... Whether it's just, I mean, it is bad decision making, but I'm wondering as to why.
Yeah, I don't know.
I think he just cracks under the stress and pressure.
Yep. And then my Bengals lost to the Jets. The Bengals were the top AFC seed, and then they lost to the Jets, who are just like a dumpster fire of a team. So now like, Pokey Ames probably laughing his ass. Just laughing.
Literally anybody. I mean, AFC is just. I mean, you can throw a rock and anybody could be the winner of the AFC.
Yeah, you can't lose to the Jets and be like a threat in the AFC. So like, I'm really sad about that. But and then the Lions are a dumpster fire.
Yep.
We don't talk about them. We are now Rams fans here in Michigan. We want Matt Stafford to win the Super Bowl
because they took Stafford.
Yeah. So anyway. Let's talk about a little bit of Pokemon. I went out. I got my shiny Zacian.
Justin, you got a new legendary. You and your boy both. You want to tell us about that story? That was a bit of a journey. So unfortunately, we had to go on an actual adventure.
Yeah,
it's 2021. We have mystery gift, but somehow they just don't want to use it.
Yep. So here's the card you're going to get if you go get your shiny Zacian. Pretty cool little card. And it's got a code on the
really
back. I already used my code, so I mean you can try it if you want. See if you get one, but you won't. Yeah, so I went to GameStop. And we went in there, and me and my son, we both had our Switches, and we went in there, and we...
So, wait a minute. You had two people?
Two people.
And two consoles, and 2 copies of the game.
And 2 copies of the game. We had everything we needed, and we went in there.
So, what happened?
We go in there, we go to GameStop, we go, hey, we're looking for shiny dogs. You got shiny dogs? So I literally said, hey, we're looking for codes for shiny dogs. I had no idea what I was talking about, so that was a huge red flag right there. So, you know what I mean? They don't know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, how are you going to run an event and not know what the event is?
And I was like, shiny Pokemon? And then the lady was still like, huh? And then the manager was like, they're looking for the codes for the Pokemon event. And they're like, oh, okay. And then they only gave us 1. And I was like, we have 2 Switches. And they were like, sorry, 1 per household. I was like, 1 per household? It's like, I brought 2 Switches.
I brought 2 Switches and 2 games.
Yeah, like...
And the thing is that the ad never said that.
No, it didn't.
The ad said 1 per console, 1 per game.
Yeah.
Or 1 per account is what it said.
So I'm already like 15, 20 minutes from home. I was like, all right, whatever. So I guess we're going to another GameStop. So we go on. So, okay, the adventure's begun, you know? So we go to the mall. And we run in there. And we're like, hey, we're looking for shiny dogs. Again, they didn't know what I was talking about. Red flag. If you don't know what shiny dogs is. And
this your job is literally like...
Yeah.
This is just a complete fumble by the Pokemon Company to do it this way. Yeah. This isn't 2008 anymore. We don't need to go to GameStop to get our Pokemon.
Yeah, and the one at the mall was out of codes. They're like, sorry, we ran out of those a while ago. So now I'm like freaking out. Because I gave my kid the code for the first one, naturally. And I was like... But luckily they were like, okay, well, there's a GameStop across the street. You might want to check with them. So I run across the street. I'm freaking out at this point. I'm frustrated. I've been out for like over an hour, and I thought this was going to be like a 20, 30-minute trip. And I get to this other GameStop, and luckily they had a code, and they gave it to us. And they warned me, and they were like, we can only give 1 per household. And I was like, yeah, I heard that before. So we take it, and then while I'm there, they get a phone call, and someone's like, hey, I'm looking for the shiny Zacian, and blah, blah, blah. And they're like, okay, well, we got a really limited supply, and you can only have 1 per household. So the lesson here is I don't do it again this way, Game Freak. The card is cool.
This is a terrible way to do this. Like, why do you have to waste the paper? Why do you got to waste the gas? You're in the middle of a pandemic and you got to go out in public. Like, just you have the technology. Just send it through the mystery gift like you did Zero Aura or Zarude or Celebi or anything else. Just send it through online.
Yeah. So the other lesson,
in the comfort of my nerd den.
The biggest lesson here is if you haven't got your Zacian code, go get it now. They might be out. You might have lost out. If you're a sword owner and you're gonna
have until November 11th in the U.S. to get shiny Zacian if you're a Shield user.
Yes, thank you for the date drop, sir. My advice: if you're a sword user and you're gonna go get shiny Zamazenta, go get it day of. Yeah, Justin.
I'm gonna get it day of. So we're filming this on the 3rd of November. We have until next Thursday, the 11th, is the final day for Shield. So if you have Pokemon Shield and you want the shiny Zacian, go anytime between now and next Thursday, the 11th of November. And then next Friday, the 12th of November through the 26th of November will be for sword users to get Zamazenta. So me personally, I live right across the street from a GameStop, so I'm going to be in there at 10:01 next Friday. As soon as they open the doors, I'm going, hey, give me my dog. Give me my pink dog.
I want you to tell them, hey, I'm looking for shiny dogs and see what they say. Because that's going to be, that's quality. You're quality checking the GameStop if you say it that way. Like, hey, shiny dogs, if they know exactly what you're talking about, quality GameStop. But if they don't, questionable employees inside.
It's just a bad strategy from like the top down. It's just a terrible way to do. But if that's what we got to do to get our dogs, hey, luckily I do live right across. If I live 20, 30 minutes away like Brandon, I wouldn't even.
Yeah.
I'll just borrow. Like Brandon has Shield and Doug has Shield. I'll just borrow one of their dogs if I need to make a team.
Right,
you know
right.
I mean?
So you want to talk about the other little fun adventure we had over the weekend, Pokemon related?
Yeah. So we speaking of shinies, we did another fun little event that they had going on. Again, online, didn't have to leave our house the way it's supposed to be. And but it was for Halloween. We got the shiny Zorro arc. That was a fun raid. We did that, I think, like what, Friday night, Saturday night?
I don't. It was Friday night, I think. Right, Friday night.
Yeah,
It was. Yeah, we did some shiny hunting.
Everybody in the PMC got one, and we ended up getting an extra one for your kid who was in bed already. But yeah, we got everything we needed.
Yeah, we shiny hunted for a couple of hours. But yeah, it was worth it. If we ever get another unrestricted format, maybe even this format, we'll see. You'll probably see that on the channel. We've hit the shiny every single time they've had one of these events, except we missed the Meowth one.
But I don't care about that.
But yeah, we got the shiny Azumarill, we got the shiny Ice Cube, and now we got the shiny Zoroark. So hopefully they keep doing these, because every time we participate in one, we're hitting.
And for what it's worth, we also got the shiny Zeraora back in the day too, but that was for everybody.
Thing. So we're hitting, we're striking on the shiny event. So hopefully they keep doing them, especially like for these holidays. Like, let's get shiny Abomasnow or something.
It's really fun, like, and it gets us playing the game.
Yeah,
the fact that like the Zeraora, to get the white tiger, like we had to do like globally 1 million or whatever raids, and that was cool. Yeah, and then like the Zoroark, we had to like actually shiny hunt it, and it got us playing the game.
Yeah, which was fun.
Logging in and getting on the ranked ladder, but actually walking around and doing raids and playing the game, which was fun.
It was a good time. It was refreshing to just play the game the way you just play the game. So yeah, I think that kind of does it for us. For what we kind of like been up to in our personal lives, or whatever you want to call it. We do have one bit of news before we jump into the team building, which I'm super excited to do. We have tier shifts to look over for singles in Smogon. So I'm gonna pull.
Yeah, so those will be obviously last month. October 1st was the first, the last tier shift of the year. And then this will be the first month of this 3-month stint. So we just get some trends here. So you want to pull those up and we can talk about those?
Yes, sir. I will pull these up. So the first thing, well, you know what? You tell me. What's the first thing you notice here?
Sleeves is dominating. Mienshao, she's like, people got to realize in 1 month, jumping by 11% up or down. That is
crazy.
Massively huge.
Crazy.
That is so big.
Yeah. That is huge. People, the way a lot of people kind of use Mienshao is they'll like choice Bandit or choice Scarf it, like throw U-turn on there and then just slap close combat, and they'll go in, revenge kill something, or they'll throw heavy duty boots on it.
You see a lot of stone edges.
Yeah. We like to run like a lead version almost, where you kind of like, fake out U-turn, knock off.
Yeah, we personally run Life Orb.
Yeah.
Gives us some more versatility, because he's got so many good moves you can use, both on the showdown ladder or on cartridge. Like, he's got a really good move pool built in. So he's really solid in basically every format. Like, he gets coaching and stuff like that for VGC. Obviously, like Brandon said, fake out. I personally run U-turn, knock off, fake out, drain punch. And then regenerator, so he's just like a really solid, like, pseudo bruiser kind of, like, he's not tanky like a bruiser, but he fills that kind of role where he's going to go in and actually do some work and fight it out. He's not just going to be a pivot.
Yeah. I just copied yours. Like years ago in 5th gen when it came out, I was like, okay, I'm just going to do the same exact thing. It was one of those things.
Another big one on the rise down in UU. So the bunny, Easter Bunny, she's jumping from number 28 to number 9. 7 to 15% usage is massive.
Yeah.
And obviously, Ellie on an RU jumping from number 12 to number 2. It's a huge leap there. Really, really, really like significant leaps there.
Yeah.
Both of those folks. And then over in the drops, dropping the ball. Crocodile dropping by almost 10% from number 3 down to number 19.
Also absolutely crazy. What the huge drop. Huge, massive drops.
And I can't help but to think Mienshao might have something to do with that, because he does outspeed the Krook and he does get things like knockoff. And then obviously right next to it, the Azumarill going up makes the Krook going down, obviously with those huge power Aqua Jets or whatever.
Yeah.
Not to mention you get fairy type. So just the dual stab it's a direct, both of Azumarill's typing are good against both of Krook's typing. So I can't help some correlation there between one rising and one falling.
Yep. One thing that I think is pretty interesting when we move on up to the OU tier, Regieleki on the rise, and weather teams falling down. So we've got Barraskewda falling, which is surprising, and then we've got Arctozolt falling too. So it looks like weather wars kind of calming down a little bit here. Or
at least maybe the Aleki's going up to maybe now that because Pelipper just got moved back to OU last month.
Yeah.
Oh, Aleki's rise going up makes sense to me, obviously, because he can kill about 15 Pelippers with one shot. So.
Yeah, pretty much. No, I agree. If they gave a Regieleki Nuzzle, probably still KOs a lot of Pelippers, like all in a row. I found that pretty interesting. Chandelure falling, that's pretty interesting, but a lot of times you run that with a Scarf, and things like Scarf Flygon, I think, are just like a little more threatening and a little bit better.
Better move pool. Flygon's stronger, Chandelure is stronger in terms of like its special attack versus Flygon special or physical.
Yep.
But Flygon's faster, and he has better move coverage.
Yep. And then the last thing, we got the Clown, Blacephalon Rising in OU. It's funny.
3%.
Yeah, this is one of the most threatening Pokemon in the metagame, in my opinion, because the way it can snowball your team with Shadow Ball, like, there's not a whole lot of, like, resists to Shadow Ball in the tier right now. Like, the Ghost and Fire combination, actually super, super strong. So, yeah, he kind of snowballs your team. Blunder compared it to Spectrier. Back when Spectrier was still allowed in OU, that was the comparison that he made, and I definitely kind of share that sentiment. It can snowball your team. It beast boosts its special attack. It's the same thing but a little different. It's the same thing but it's weak to Stealth Rock.
Exactly.
So that kind of covers tier trends, wouldn't you say, Justin?
Yeah, there's not a whole lot to talk about because things aren't really shifting. It's just trends. But there are a couple of big percentage jumps. I'm really excited to see December 1st what comes with this, and then obviously in January with starting off the new year with a brand new tier shift will be really, really, really fun. So
yeah. So Justin, you want to move into team building? You want to talk about your team first, and kind of the approach that you took to team building?
Yeah. So what team are we going to talk about first? What order do you have them in?
Let's talk about your VGC team first. Would you like to do that?
Okay. So I want to talk about basically our approaches. So out of all the PMC crew, Brandon and I are probably the most in sync or simpatico, hence us doing the show together.
Yeah.
But there are some very stark differences in our approach to gaming. There are a lot of similarities, but there are a couple really key differences, and I think it's great. I don't think it's necessarily a conversation about correct or incorrect. I think it's more of a conversation about flavor or preference.
Exactly.
And that's sort of the beautiful thing is that there's so many avenues that you can get into competitive Pokemon, whether, again, singles, 3v3, VGC. There are wrong answers, but there are so many different correct avenues that you could take or approaches you could take to team building. So for me personally, we've only dabbled in VGC for about a year now. 99% of our competitive Pokemon career has been in singles. So that for me is kind of where I'm talking mostly still. But for me, historically, my number one approach has most of the time, especially like all reputable teams, if we look back in the PMC and we look back to any popular squads I've ever run or any popular Mons I've ever run, almost all of them revolve around a fire, water, grass core. Now, we've touched this on the channel before. I think it was like episode 2 of the podcast when we did that before, and we kind of touched on.
And really quickly, while you talk about that, I've got your fire, water, grass core pulled up here on screen for people to see.
Nice. With Sceptile?
Yeah, with Sceptile. I got the Sceptile core up right now.
So this is our NU team that we used for a big majority of 2021. for NU, this was our squad that we used up until Flygon, and then Bronzong subsequently got booted to RU.
Yeah.
But back then, this was all legal, and this is our squad. And you can see here is the Firewater Grass Core. We've got Sceptile, definitely an offensive squishy piece, and then we have the Arcanine, which has the Intimidate, makes it bulky, and then we have a super, super fat, especially defensive Blastoise. Now, basically, the thought process or the idea behind a Firewater Grass Core is that it's kind of like just like the starters. We're all used to this. It's that triangle where, you know what I mean? The typing works together, reverse, or, clockwise or counterclockwise. Fire's good against grass, good against water, good against fire. And then, in reverse order, that's what's bad against it. So you can use a Firewater Grass Core to pivot. That's essentially the idea. So, like, if you send out a Sceptile and you're afraid of the opponent hitting you with a flamethrower, you just swap right out into Arcanine.
Or Blastoise.
Or Blastoise. They both resist it. And depending, it could be Fire Punch. So maybe you'd go to Arcanine to intimidate and take the physical hit. And then maybe it's Flamethrowers, you go to Blastoise to take the special. Whatever. The point is you have these cohesive, like this trio of a core that you can, it's basically giving your team the ability to pivot almost indefinitely. It still requires prediction and all the main staples of a competitive player regardless. But what it gives you is that pseudo-guaranteed pivot. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So, like, if you have a Fire Mono and you're worried about taking an EQ, you can go to your grass type.
Yep.
And it resists ground, and you can just, eat that up. Like, back in the day in 6th Gen PU, I was running defensive Meganium, defensive Lead Macargo, and then especially defensive Eviolite Wartortle. So again, that's my defensive core, and then the offensive core, I had things like a Specs Raichu and a Swords Dance Toxic Orb Ursaring and stuff like that. So kind of 3 and 3, which that's one of the things that Brandon and I are once he gets to talking, that's the thing that is most similar about us is we really, really try, or we'd like to, especially when we're like going on the ranked ladder, we try to do more of an all-comers, or what was the way that you put it? Like a balanced?
Yeah, balanced, like a balanced team. Yeah. So let me ask you really quickly. So if we had to make a little list here, so we're going to talk about 3 teams today. If we had to make a little list of team building styles, would you say that this is a team building style just strictly built around a core? Like building
Correct.
A core that was the first step.
Is one of the main categories for
sure.
That
was the first step you took to this team, was building a core, using a core as the first aspect of the team building mechanic.
And using the typing in conjunction to make sure, and typing as well as defensive stats or abilities like maybe Flash Fire, putting, I got a defensive wall, special defense wall, maybe Intimidate. This is your you could also do it with an offensive core too.
Yes. And so, Firewater Grass is really easy to recognize, but there's plenty of other cores, like Fairy, Steel, Dragon is a core as well. That's a core absolutely. I used on my Dragonite VGC team.
And it could be offensive core or defensive core. So you could do offensive core, so where you're like, okay, I want to make sure that I have the output. And you need to go through and you check off the boxes. Okay, do I have an ice move? Well, then maybe Blastoise needs Ice Beam.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Like that's like the secondary part of the team building when it comes to like building your core.
Exactly. But for me, the core, I usually try to have a Firewater Grass core, which often leads down the path of a more defensive core.
Mm-hmm.
And then I use those other 2 to 3 slots to sort of fill out my offense or my utility, or maybe I'll put utility on, like back in the day when, like I said, my cargo was my fire, and it had my stealth rocks.
Yeah. Yep.
So like there's utility that you can bring in there too, again, in your offensive pieces or defensive. But yeah, that's generally my claim to fame, or like my kind of staple approach. Is I'm a big fan of Firewater Grass cores. Like that's
sure.
My thing.
Been seeing that for years out of you, for sure.
Yep. And it's comfortable. It's what I grew up with the starters. Like it just kind of fits into that kind of pseudo nostalgic, kind of drawn out from when we were kids.
Exactly. And there's nothing wrong with it. Firewater grass could pop off in any tier, honestly.
Absolutely. Any tier, any format. It's just it's not something that I do in all of my teams, but I'd say most.
Yeah. So would you like to talk about your VGC team that you brought to the table today and walk us through kind of what you did there and what the idea was?
So this is a little bit different approach. This was for Series 8, originally built this one. Now we've revamped it and we're bringing it out for Series 11.
Yeah, this has been featured on the channel. There is a video of this out there in our Series 8 playlist.
Definitely. Poncho popping off of Ludicolo.
Yes.
So this was obviously like when Series 8 came around. I've talked about this on the channel before. It was a completely different style of team building for me because it was you basically pick an Uber and center around that, which is very similar to how you build teams, where you kind of you have like a featured mon, like, oh, I want to use Dragonite. So I'm going to build a team that centers around making sure the Dragonite pops off, and I can utilize him as my win con or whatever. Like we had a Starmie team, where Starmie was the focus, and we built stuff to make sure that Starmie popped off.
So I'm looking at this. I'm looking at this, and just the first thing that comes to mind when I look at this is that you wanted to build a team around Rain. Like, am I kind of correct in that assumption there? Like.
I didn't want to build a team that was just Kyogre.
Yeah.
Because, like, anybody can do Tornadus Kyogre, max speed, special attack with Mystic Water. Anybody can do that.
Mm-hmm.
Which is fine. I'm not knocking it.
Yeah, it works. We know it works.
I'm the Hoenn rep. And Kyogre was the first legendary I ever caught when I was a little kid. And so it's a big nostalgic piece for me. And I really wanted to make sure that, again, like we talked about, I like Brandon and I both like balanced teams.
Yes.
We call them kind of skew lists. We don't really like that as much. Doesn't mean they can't work. It's just not our flavor. So I wanted to make sure that this team functioned as a Rain squad first, and just the benefit of being able to use Kyogre over Pelipper was just a plus. Does that make sense? That was my approach to this team. Is I wanted to make sure that it worked as a well-rounded Rain team more than anything. And Rain has always been another thing. Like, if there's two claims to fame that Justin's ever had, it's been either a Firewater Grass Core or a Rain squad every time. Like, those are my two archetypes for team building. So I'm very familiar with weather. I'm very familiar with Rain specifically. That's always been my go-to. Partially due to the fact that I love Ludicolo, so I want to make him pop off with Swift Swim. But so basically here the idea, especially when you see that we have Assault Vest and it's not very much special attack investment on the Kyogre, you start to realize, like, okay, this is not the standard.
Yeah.
This Kyogre can, especially, max Dynamax candies the way we have in Cart. This Kyogre, when Dynamax, can live a lot. Yep. Boomer does not become even close to as much of a threat as he normally would be to a Kyogre team, which is really, really, really beneficial. Being able to deal with some off-meta kind of picks like Power Whip, Gyarados. Like, this thing shrugs that for days. It's like a 6-hit KO. It's not even kind of close.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a Kyogre that can just kind of flex in the face of what's normally Kyogre checks or counters.
Yeah.
And it's not a check or a counter versus this build. But yet he still does massive damage with only 96 special attack.
So when I look at this team and I'm like, okay, so weather was the focus. You built it around, you said, okay, I want to build a Rain team. And then Kyogre was the natural pick. And then the next step in the team building process from what I'm seeing here is, okay, what benefits from the Rain? What are the beneficiaries? You went with your offensive beneficiaries first, like Zapdos here. You're like, okay, Zapdos, an amazing weather Pokemon, especially.
Zapdos was, like, there was no... I thought about Thundurus, but there was one key difference between Zapdos and Thundurus that instantly made it a no-brainer for me personally, for my taste, to where I'm going to pick Zapdos 100% of the time over Thundurus. They both get Thunder, Stab.
Yep.
They both get Weather Ball. Awesome.
Yep.
But it's Hurricane.
Yeah.
Hurricane is the reason that Zapdos is on this squad instead of Thundurus Therian.
Yeah. All right.
Zapdos was just he just fits so well into the rain team, and he's just so strong. Like, and then obviously Ludicolo is a huge threat. The fake out, honestly, is kind of like that the unsung hero.
For real.
Being able to have fake out on Poncho is just insane. It's so people don't expect it. They expect you to Dynamax turn one with the guy, and we very rarely do. We can. We like if somebody leaves the door open, we have led Kyogre, Ludicolo turn one, and we just Dynamax and go.
Yeah.
But smart players aren't going to let that happen. But being able to have really good coverage and the Muddy Water, Ludicolo does learn Weather Ball, but we specifically put Muddy Water on this team over Weather Ball. It was an intentional choice. It's less damage because it's A, less base power, and B, it's a spread move in doubles. If you don't know, that means you're doing less damage because it splits.
Yep.
And it's in perfect accuracy, 85 accuracy. So you might be wondering, well, why not just take Weather Ball? There's two reasons. One, we want to be able to have a max geyser regardless of what weather's out.
Yep.
And if you have Weather Ball, it'll say max strike, and it turns into whatever weather is current. And if there's no weather, it's just a max strike. And we've done that before in the past with Hyper Voice Primarina, and we have felt the impact of not having a strong or a usable geyser. So I have that on this one. And then also, because we're running Expert Belt and we're in the rain and we're modest and it's stab and yada, 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 Brandon was actually he's the one that brought this up the past couple times when we did some practice online. And we actually were grinding a little bit yesterday now that the new Series 11 has dropped. And I think you were like really impressed with Muddy Water's damage.
Yeah, I was. It's this Pokemon
like,
specifically.
You don't expect it, do you?
Yeah, like this Pokemon specifically, man. You don't think much about 90 base special attack, but like the stab combination is super strong right now. And then the access to Swift Swim. Like you could say that about a lot of Swift Swim users. Like, oh yeah, they're super strong, but like they're definitely like a really cool under the radar pick. Definitely like a PMC special.
Yeah, the fact that he's got stab Giga Drain, especially in a meta when Boomer's everywhere, to either set up grassy terrain or obviously we can overgrowth set up our own. Giga Drain, it does work. It really does work, especially with Expert Belt. That's a big boost in damage. Obviously, historically, I've always run Poncho with a Life Orb, but obviously having it on the Zapdos here, we put Expert Belt, and it really comes in handy. The Ice Beam, invaluable. Again, being able to have Ice Beam on Poncho or the Hurricane on Zapdos is what helps us take care of Rillaboom. He is still a threat, but he's just not a hard counter to this team.
Yep.
Because we're in the defensive Kyogre. And then another big flex pick here for me, the third big offensive piece outside of Kyogre is the Kartana. Being able to use the Focus Sash in the back with the Beast Boost is really, really strong. He's got good stats, really fast, really, really strong. He's weak on the special side, but again, when you Dynamax with Max Candies, he's a great Dynamax option. Being able to have Airstreams and Overgrowth to deal with enemy Kyogres, being able to boost up ourselves with Airstreams, another Airstream to take care of Rillaboom. We have Knuckles to take care of things that are really prevalent in the meta and things that are strong against Kyogre teams in general, like Dialga. So being able to hit Dialga for super effective fighting damage is really, really good. The fact that when he's small, he's got really good utility in the moves that he's packing, like whatchamacallit, Aerial Ace and Smart Strike can't miss. So you can get around certain things in the meta like Minimize or certain types of evasion hacks like that. We have Sacred Sword, which cuts through defenses. So whether it's Steel Spike or Iron Defense or whatever, you just slice through that like butter. It's really, really solid. And then obviously Leaf Blade can crit. It's a nice little bonus, but it's there.
It's cool. It's cool like when you look at Kartana and like this moveset specifically, it just like cut. It's kind of cool. Like it's an origami Pokemon and it cuts through things. You know what I mean? Like
it does. It does everything we need to. Yes, he's squishy, especially on the special side. But you play around that, and that's also why we're bringing Assault Vest Kyogre, and they kind of work together.
Yeah.
And then the the last two, Bronzong is actually, we've been talking about benching him potentially for a Volt Absorb or Lightning Rod user, maybe a Landorus for some lightning immunity, electric immunity. But right now, Bronzong actually fits that bill pretty decently because he's got the ally switch. So there's a lot of big play there. And obviously, we've run this Bronzong before. This is the one you're familiar with. Max HP, max defense with Iron Defense Body Press, so it becomes an actual offensive threat. With one Iron Defense, we can one-shot the standard Rillaboom, the standard squishier side of Rillaboom, with just one Iron Defense, and that's why we run max physical defense. Same thing with the Glastrier. We can one-shot a Glastrier with Body Press, and we can one-shot a Calyrex Ice if we have an Iron Defense up.
Yeah.
So it's really, really strong there. And then obviously this last pick, this is the pick. We kind of saved it for last, kind of bearing the lead, but this is the flex pick. This is that super awesome PMC flavor. If nothing was PMC before on this squad, this doggo is.
Yeah, this is the pick. This is the flex.
And I want you to kind of rep this. This is my team this is my idea that I brought to the table. And now that you've actually had it pretty recently, got some play testing in with this squad, what do you think of this Stoutland?
It's a weird
spec.
It's actually pretty impressive. Like the first time I looked at this, I was like, "Hey, is this Calyrex Shadow Counter?" And you were like, "Yep." So like immediately I recognized the use right there.
That's why it's got crunch instead of like body slam or whatever.
And protect.
But look at the EV spread. Like it's not what you would. Like when you look at that EV spread versus when you actually play with it in game, you're like, wait a minute, this thing's actually really insanely bulky.
Yeah. And obviously, like Yawn, super annoying, super helpful. Helping Hand is really nice in case, Helping Hand is a really underrated move. Like the fact that it goes before pretty much everything in the game. Like if you're sitting on 1 HP, if you're sitting on 1 HP and you know you're gonna die, just toss out a Helping Hand, get the most out of your Stoutland or your Helping Hand user before they go down.
Yeah.
And then
give them a round of applause on your dying breath kind of thing.
Yep. And then protect. Yep. Protect is actually like if you can fit protect on your defensive Pokemon, like it's actually so annoying. Like if you can fit protect on an Incineroar, that can be crippling, like to your opponent if they like misplay.
Well, and especially on this squad, we only actually have 2 protects. So like Artana's doesn't have protect because we needed all the moves for coverage.
Yeah.
And or Airstreams, and we have the Focus Sash. Poncho doesn't have Protect because we've got Fake Out, so kind of buying us some time there. And then obviously we don't have Protect on Kyogre because he's Assault Vested. So, and then Bronzong has Ally Switch. So again, there's reasons we don't have Protect here, but so that's why for the Stoutland and the Zapdos, we really wanted to make sure we had 2 Protect options.
Yeah,
and we bring Stoutland in almost every game because he's a different Intimidate user. I didn't want to bring Instant in the rain. That was my first dilemma for this team. Is like I need Intimidate, but I don't want him. I could bring Lando. Definitely. Gyarados is okay, but that's another electric weakness. Could potentially bring Luxray, but he doesn't really because he's not using Thunder. You don't need an you know what I mean?
Right, yeah.
So I ended up, digging deep to that barrel, and I ended up finding Stoutland, and I was like, you know what? Did some calcs, did some play testing. This was the second iteration of the dog that made it to this team in terms of like EV spread or whatever. I had one that was a little bit bulkier before, and I kind of overkill. Like he was really bulky, and I was like, I can afford to put some speed in here. I can afford to put a little bit of attack in here, and he still lives. He lives things that he shouldn't live. Like that's when you're a competitive player and you're like, oh, I'm not used to this Pokemon being out here, but I think I can kill it. Stoutland's one of those pokes you can't.
Yeah, you'd be surprised.
He truly impresses us every time we use him.
And being a ghost immunity is really, really, really nice.
Yep, really big deal.
Yep.
So that's basically and again, that's one thing for me personally. This is one of those VGC kind of side tangent to team building. I personally never leave home without at least one helping hand.
Yeah. Yep. So Justin,
that's one of those staple like must be. It has so much potential. Like it changes the math on so many different calcs that people are used to. They're like, oh, I can live this. Not with a helping hand, you can't.
Yeah.
And like Brandon had mentioned with the priority, like something's down on its last leg, and like you're going to get outsped by the Zashi next turn. Well, I can just clap this away, and then Zashi.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
It's really, really, really useful.
I definitely agree. Definitely agree.
I can't really justify. Another thing for VGC is like there's kind of like a checklist. You don't need them in every team, but it's kind of like, okay, do we have a fake out? Do we have an intimidate? Do we have some sort of pivot that, like, if we predict the lead wrong, we can swap out?
Yeah.
And take a hit. Do you know what I mean? Like, we need to be able to actually, like you can't just bring all squishies. Do we have screens, or do we need screens? Who's a Dynamax option or options? Like, when we Dynamax, we might have to change our move pool. Like, I like knockoff on Rillaboom. But if I'm building a team where Rillaboom's going to be one of the main Dynamax options, I basically never bring knockoff, and I instead bring the high horsepower because Max Quake is just so valuable. Just as an example, like on the Kartana, we did not bring Protect. We instead went for I think it's Aerial Ace, right? Or is it Acrobat?
It's Aerial Ace, yeah.
So that 90% of that is specifically so we can have access to Airstream.
Yep.
Like so there's layers to it in a Dynamax / VGC format that might not be there for singles or Smogon or a non-Dynamax format.
For sure.
But again, that gets more in depth to what format you're playing. But
exactly. Yeah, like you don't run Aerial Ace in singles format. You know what I mean?
Probably not. Especially like if you're doing like a choice. If you're doing a choice set, maybe just for coverage. But yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So, Justin, we're sitting at about the 40-minute mark. I say we forego the break and just kind of hop into mine and just make this an episode like this. Let's just hop in.
Yeah, perfect. Let's do it.
Yeah. So,
what team are you bringing today?
So today I am going to go in depth on my 3v3 Zygarde team that we featured on the channel a few times that we made Master Ball with.
With Unicron.
Yeah. Yep. Unicron.
Yeah.
So
good squad. I liked I liked your Volcarona a lot. I was a huge fan. Obviously, I'm being the grass gym leader here. I cannot get behind faster or more like vehemently behind choice banded Rillaboom. Whew. So, boy, that boy is so good. I want him in Unite so bad.
I'm sure he'll make it.
Go us through our team, buddy.
Okay, so
this is for Battle Stadium 3v3. Oh, puppy.
Oh, puppy going crazy.
Hey, Ellie. There she is. Hi, sweetie pie. She's taking a nap by Daddy on the chair. But so obviously this is for Battle Stadium 3v3 singles for Sword and Shield ranked ladder. You did make Master Ball.
Yeah.
Link in the description to us making Master Ball with this team.
Yeah. So if I had to put a name, since we're doing this, so we've kind of covered like a style building around cores. We've covered a style building around weather. And now this is a style built around a specific Pokemon. This is the featured Pokemon style. I had to put a name on it. Pretty boring name, but that's the name. So one day I said, you know what? I want to use Zygarde. That's where the team building began, was with Zygarde. And
sort of that top-down approach of like, I'm making Zygarde, full stop. I'm making Zygarde work.
Yeah.
What other 5 do I put in here to make Zygarde pop off?
Yep. And I'm going to give you guys this team in order that I chose the Pokemon and for what reasons I chose the Pokemon. So first of all, I chose Zygarde, obviously. I wanted to do Power Construct because I loved the idea of turning into the like giant.
Yeah.
And I knew he had access to stab 1,000 arrows, so I was like, okay, maybe this 1,000 arrows.
Explain why that's a big deal for people that might not know.
Stab 1,000 arrows?
Yeah.
1,000 arrows is
it's ground.
It's a ground type move that can hit flying and levitate Pokemon and knock them to the ground. So if you switch in your Moltres on my 1,000 arrows,
you don't need gravity.
Gravity. It'll knock him down, and then the next turn it'll do super effective damage because he's touching the ground. It basically removes the flying type.
Yeah.
Or the levitate. Yeah. So I was like,
for doubles format, it's also a spread move, isn't it?
Yes, it is. So the idea was, okay, I want to build a team around Zygarde. What are the biggest threats in the meta right now? The biggest threats in the meta at the time were, this is Series 10.
Series 10, yep.
Zacian, obviously. So I said, okay, I got Stab 1,000 Arrows. And then it was Calyrex Shadow. I said, wow, okay, this thing has access to Crunch. And then I toyed around with the last move a lot. Between Stone Edge and Iron Tail, I was like, maybe I want to hit Xerneas. Maybe I want to hit this. Maybe I want to hit that. And then I just opted for Stone Edge just to hit flying, like certain flying types before as they come in. And the damage was just really nice. So that was what I settled on. And I said, okay, I'm weak to Fairy, Ice, and Dragon. What beats those? So I went to Tapu Fini here. I covered 2 of those options.
She fits so well into like every team.
Yeah.
Well, and the fact that she brings Fairy Terrain, so it shuts off your Will-O-Wisp because you're obviously running a physical Zygarde.
Yeah. So I looked at this thing and I said, okay, what can I do with this? And what is? And I looked at Zygarde's weaknesses. Okay, this is a setup Pokemon. And then I said, you know who's really popular in the meta right now is Quagsire because he can 1v1 Zacian. So I said, why don't I bring Taunt to kind of shut that whole thing, and Pyukumuku as well. Why don't I bring Taunt to shut those things down? Which I did make a good use. I made a lot of good use out of Taunt, honestly. And then I just brought a little more setup with a Dual Stab and a Calm Mind. And this is a little bit. This is like a mixed set. So, and so then I looked at this and I said, okay, I covered my Ice weakness with Fini. I covered my Dragon weakness with Fini. And then I said, well, Fini's weak to Electric, but Zygarde complements that because he's ground, so that was already figured out. And I said, okay, Grass. I said, I don't have like an answer to Rillaboom. So that's where Volcarona came in. 4 times resist to that. It also checks Zacian pretty well because of Flame Body, and Volcarona resists most of Zacian's moveset, unless they're running Crunch. But anytime they make contact, they run the risk of burning themselves, which it happened a lot. So I did go with this set. Oh, and
it even happened in one of our videos on the channel.
Yeah.
Again, links in the description. Go check those out. We did hit Master Ball with this, so this is a tried and true. This is a tested. And again, we hit Master Ball back in Series 8 for double. So all these teams that we're talking about today are like we've featured them all on the channel. You can watch videos back of us doing the NU squad with the Sceptile team,
yep.
the Kyogre in Series 8, and then this one in Series 10. So
these
are all like already proven PMC squads.
Yeah. So that's where the first 3 Pokemon came in.
I love the Volcarona pick. It's so cool because for me personally, there were a couple times in playtesting where I wish I had the Bug Buzz. But then there were other times where the Psychic came in handy. So it's one of those like 5 move slot syndrome. I don't think it's a bad thing either way. It's just like a flavor pick.
Yeah, Psychic was another answer to Eternatus. Because I built this team around the meta. That's another part of this team. I built it around the meta. Like, as you can say, I'm like, okay, what does this beat? What does this beat? What does this beat? What does this weak do? And I had Pikalytics up, which I'm going to talk about really quickly. Pikalytics is something you should definitely be looking. If you're trying to do some hardcore team building.
Yep.
You absolutely.
Because it gives you everything you need to know. Like, it's literally the one-stop shop for everything. It tells you every format. You can select what format. You can select what Pokemon. You can select a move. You can select. It tells you. It tells you what's the common partners, move sets, items, stat distribution, natures. It tells you everything. So it's a good indication of if you don't know what to do with a Pokemon. Gives you some suggestions of what you could do or what's the popular thing to do. Also, in contrary, if you're worried about a specific threat, now you have some actual tangible global statistics that you can make better informed decisions.
Yep. I'm showing off Pikalytics right now. However, it's not showing me the. It's weird on PC. It's not showing me the. Series 10 singles, but when I was on mobile, I used the mobile version to build the team and see the threats. And then I would come over to the damage calculator here, PokemonShowdown.com. So it's calc.PokemonShowdown.com. Make good use of this because this helped me choose what Pokemon.
We use this every day.
Yeah, this is what helped me choose the Pokemon. So I did the math and I said after one Dragon Dance, Zygarde one-hit KOs every offensive version of Zacian. And that was part of the decision-making when it came to the item, to the move slots. And then I learned... And I used this to also learn that Zygarde at +1 speed outspeeds Calyrex Shadow Rider as well as Zacian. So just after one Dragon Dance, I learned that I had a counter to those Pokemon. And that's where the focus is.
I do want to bring up one other thing that you did in terms of calculations that we've featured on the channel quite a bit, which we have different names but the exact same set, and that's what's her actual name? Celesteela.
Yeah, Celesteela.
Brandon has a unique Celesteela set where it's 164 speed, and that puts it at a perfect prime tier to where after just one speed boost, so the standard Airstream, which for her it's Stab, which is awesome.
Yep.
That she outspeeds all level 100s. So again,
base 100s. Base 100 speeds.
Base 100 speeds. So being able to use, and what that did was meaning that we don't have to do 252 into speed.
Yep.
We can just do 164, and the rest of that goes into HP. And our particular brand, we run Assault Vest, and she is actually really, really, really. She's got a great typing.
Yes.
But on top of that, with the stat distribution that we give her and the Assault Vest, she's an insanely effective bruiser. She does a lot of damage, great coverage, and she can tank a lot. So I know it's not on this team, but that's just an example of and that was that's some straight up Brandon tech.
Exactly. So that's your brand. That's where the damage calculator really, really comes in handy because you can check your speeds too. You can.
It's so essential. It's honestly, if you want to get into competitive Pokemon, it doesn't matter. Like we've mentioned at the top of the show, if you're playing Smogon singles, if you're playing against your friends, if you're playing ranked ladder, whether it be the Battle Stadium 3v3 or the VGC, competitive standard doubles, or anywhere in between. Knowing your calcs is such a big deal.
Yeah,
it's so prevalent. Being able to tell what can I live, what can I kill, what can I outspeed, what outspeeds me. Same thing if you're doing a Trick Room squad. What do I outspeed if the speed tiers are reversed in a Trick Room?
Exactly.
It's probably the most valuable tool in any competitive Pokemon arsenal, which is that calculator right there.
Yeah, exactly. If you don't use it now, start using it.
Start using it, and we have that pulled up. I've got a tab on my computer right here. I'm sure Brandon does too. But we use this every single day.
Yeah,
literally every day of our lives that revolve around competitive Pokemon.
Yep.
Every single time we're doing comp Pokemon, this is pulled up.
Yeah. So moving back to the team.
Go.
No, you're good. You're good. That was important stuff we needed to mention.
It's just so important, to be able to reiterate to people who have, because we've had people comment on our YouTube and stuff about team building, and that's kind of why we did this episode. So we want to make sure that everybody knows about these resources that we use.
Yeah. So when it came, I built my core. So I've got my Zygarde, my Feeny, and my Volcarona. That was the core of my team. Those three covered their weaknesses pretty well. So the next thing that I kind of decided for this team, I said, okay, I've got a lot of setup Pokemon, Quiver Dance, Calm Mind, and Dragon Dance. And I said, I need immediate damage.
I want to punch something in the face as hard as I can.
So Choice Banded Max Adamant Attack Rillaboom was the next step in the process here. And it also offered me a pivot with U-Turn, just in case I like to, it happened in the videos sometimes where we would lead with Rillaboom against a Pokemon that was weak to Grassy Glide, and we would U-turn out expecting them to switch. And, we'd give the opponent too much credit, and for some reason they don't, which is frustrating. But
in higher tier play, that's absolutely going to be the option.
Yeah.
So in higher tier play, nobody's just going to leave a Kyogre in turn 1 like that.
Yeah, we were up against a Rotom Wash, and I was like, "There's no way they leave this in. They're going to Zacian or whatever was in the back." So I'm clicking U-turn and I'm getting my Scout, and they stayed in, and that's just a skill thing.
And as we saw later in the video, they shouldn't have stayed in because we one-shotted we killed about 4 Rotoms with one grass.
Yeah. So that's where Rillaboom came in. I said, I need something that is immediately threatening every single time it's on the field. Yep. And that's what I had in Rillaboom. So, and then...
Oh, yeah. And he's so potent.
Yep.
Especially because you did not run the bulky version. You ran the max speed.
Yes.
And he's got 85 base speed. Like, he's not slow.
No.
That is, like, legit, like, A tier. It's not S, but that's legit A tier speed for 8th competitive. So being able to have max speed, and because he's adamant, adamant choice banded. Oh my goodness, I'm such a big fan because it changes the calculation so much.
Yeah,
having a +1 attack and adamant, as well as, like, obviously with the grassy terrain. When you add up all, it's kind of like when we talked about Ludicolo. Obviously, Ludicolo's at 90 and Boomer's at like 120, 125. So it's a big difference there in terms of base stats. But the point is, the reason Ludicolo does well is because we're stacking the buffs. We have the stab, we have the weather, we have possibly terrain, we have expert belt.
Yep.
It's the same thing here with Rillaboom. When you add those all up, it really changes the calculations, and he just does, even against resisted Pokemon.
Yeah.
We would click, I think it was in the video, we clicked a resisted Grassy Glass, still did like 50%. It's just so strong, and there's barely anything in the game that can switch in.
And
that's why it's so strong.
The beautiful thing about adding Rillaboom to this team was I created a Fire Water Grass core with Feeny, Volcarona, and Rillaboom. So I had two different options for cores, which ended up being like perfect.
Yep.
So then moving on to the next Pokemon, I added Grimmsnarl. I always, because Light Clay's not banned in this format, I threw Thunderwave on him because I wanted additional speed control and in case things got a little dicey against a Zacian or a Calyrex Shadow Rider.
Correct. I want to point out for anybody that might be a little bit new, the reason it's so strong, obviously, is because he has Prankster, so it's like a priority Thunderwave.
Yeah.
Just remember out there, Prankster, anything that's Prankster on your side that targets the enemy side, Dark types are immune to Prankster.
Yeah.
So you won't be able to Thunder Wave like an Yveltal. No. You won't be able to Thunder Wave, what's his name? Bisharp. Stuff like that.
Yep.
So it's just something to think about. Other Grimmsnarls. Grimmsnarls are everywhere, so you won't be able to Thunder Wave a Grimmsnarl.
Yeah.
But unless they have a Dark type, Thunder Wave, invaluable. So strong.
And I went Darkest. I normally run Spirit Break, but I went Darkest Lariat because of the presence of the Ghost Horse. So this one shots the Ghost Horse every single time. Darkest Lariat. It is uninvested too. So
just based off stab and the fact that it's super effective in Ghost Horse is he's ×4 weak to it. If we're talking X.
Yeah. So I wanted screens to like further bolster my setup Pokemon. I was like, okay, I got a lot of bulky or a lot of setup Pokemon here, and no Dynamax to shield me. So I'm going to put some screens up. So that was part of why I chose that. It's another resist to the Ghost Horse. Just all around made a lot of sense. And Screens Grimmsnarl is one of my favorite Pokemon of 8th gen. So
it's another fairy type, so it could potentially be
a dragon immunity.
Yes, sir. Perfect.
Yep. All right, and then moving on to the last Pokemon I chose, I decided I wanted a little more scouting potential, and I also wanted to be able to punish things like Urshifu Water or things that made contact. I wanted to be able to punish, maybe switch in on a resisted Behemoth Blade and get some paralysis with static.
He resists Behemoth Blade from Zacian. He resists Sacred Sword from Zacian, so it's actually a really good check.
Yeah. And then, so we got the Rocky Helmet as well. So we're dealing damage. We've got potential to do static. And then we've got Discharge here, too. Just to spread more paralysis. We can Roost in front of things' faces. Heat Wave for Ferrothorn. And then Volt Switch for more scouting potential. I thought this defensive Zapdos made a whole lot of sense on my team.
And the EV spread. That's a straight up, like, this used to be sort of kind of the standard a little bit in singles, but, like, the Toxic Protect and boring crap like that. But this is this has been Brandon's, he calls them Geats, but this has been Brandon's Zapdos for years. He's always been bulky Zapdos.
Dude, remember Skydrop? Remember Toxic Protect Skydrop?
Yep.
Dude, that was so broken, dude.
Really
that was so broken.
And the Rocky Helmet really comes in handy. We've won games off Rocky Helmet.
Yeah, I think the game that got us into Master Ball, we were up against that Pangoro, and it was hitting us with Ice Punch. Wasn't even doing half of our HP. Paralyzed itself, and took Rocky Helmet damage. So our win con for that game was just to roost and make him waste his ice punches and attack us. We never even had to click discharge if we didn't want to.
Exactly. So, and so he's like that self-sustaining chip damage, like hot damage.
Yeah. So yeah, like I said, so that was my approach to the team building here. I ran a lot of this was very detailed. This team was so detailed. One of my most detailed teams that I've ever made. Obviously, that's how we made Master Ball with it. This team, like I said, it started with a Pokemon. So this is how you can build. If you want to run a certain Pokemon, this is how you do it. You run it, and then you say, okay, well, what Pokemon in the meta does it beat? And then you look at the Pokemon it beats and the Pokemon it doesn't, and then you build its partners.
You build a team to compensate.
Yeah, the things that it needs to beat that it can't. That's how you build these other Pokemon around it. Is, you know what I mean? Oh, I'm really weak to this. Then okay, well, Tapu Fini or blah blah blah. So that's how you kind of approach it when you want to build around a specific Pokemon in general.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
I love that. I love that approach. Like, again, we've dabbled in this a lot, both with Series 8 and then moving on to Series 9 when we did a bunch of Gigantamax themed teams. It was taking this approach of more of like a top down. Normally I'm sort of a bottom up guy. Like, all right, I'm going to have a fire, water, grass core and build it from there, build it from the foundation up. But doing the top down where you just pick a poke and then make everything else fit around it or fit around the meta, like that, super fun way to build a team. I've never really dabbled in that before up until Series 8. That was a huge transition for me personally because, again, I'm more of a bottom-up kind of guy.
Because we built around restricted. You know what I mean? We were like, oh, here's a legendary I want to really use. So then
I want to use Dialga.
Yeah.
Okay, well, what's the best / fun way to run a PMC version of Dialga?
Exactly. Or a Dialga. And then we were like, okay, this Pokemon's really weak to Landorus or whatever. And then we're like, okay, well, let's put a ice Pokemon, whatever we ended up doing.
Yep. Exactly. Spot on. So we wanted to make this episode for people to understand that there's so many different ways that you can approach a team. You have to find your play style. I'm more of a defensive play style. Where
not stall.
Not necessarily that I'm stalled, but I'm more reserved in that I want to make sure I have a really solid defensive core. I want to make sure that I have a good solid piece of a couple different pieces of utility, and make sure that most of my bases are kind of covered in terms of like I have type coverage and priority and blah 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 blah. I've got a whole checklist that I go through.
Yep, and I almost always start with a Pokemon that I want to use. That's usually my build style.
I'm more of the bottom up, and you're more of the top down. But when we meet in the middle, like you said, by accident, this team has a fire, water, grass core. So again, we start at different points, but where we end up is often very similar. And I wanted to make this episode so that we can tell people, even though Brandon and I, from a competitive standpoint, we're very similar in how we play the game and how we overall like our results and everything, we're on similar footing. Our approach sometimes can be drastically different, and that's the fun thing is the customization, because there's over 1,000 Pokemon. If you get 4 move slots and 2 to 3 abilities and umpteen different items you could put, there's so many options. So that's the fun part, is exploring different possible alternatives, like bringing in the Stoutland as an alternative Intimidate, because the regular Intimidate users were either too standard or boring or just didn't fit because, fire and a rain or something like that. Yeah. So there are always maybe like a different avenue you could take to make it fun or approach it from your own flavor while still being competitive in the meta.
So my last, I share your sentiments completely there. I just wanted to say my last piece of advice is either, if you've got friends, run your teams by your friends. If you don't have friends that play competitive Pokemon, get on pages like Reddit and stuff like that and ask the community for feedback on your team, because the way that our teams usually work...
ask us, put it in the comments.
Oh, yeah, you could. Yeah, we would love to rate your teams. That would be awesome. If you ever got teams, we should do that. If you get on our Facebook. Go on our Facebook. Absolutely. If you got a team that you want us to rate or critique, That's probably the best way to post it until we've got like a Discord started.
Absolutely.
So yeah, because most of these teams, one of us will build the whole thing alone, and then we'll take it to the other guy and we'll say, hey, what do you think? And then we'll give each other constructive criticism. Yep. We'll test the team. Like, we can be both loving something, and then it doesn't end up working out, and then we look at each other and we're like, hey man, I don't think Bronzon fits anymore. I don't think this fits anymore. I don't like this anymore. And
exactly,
that ends up helping our teams be pretty potent at the end of the day. So that you definitely want that second opinion.
Communal feedback is invaluable.
Yeah,
that's why we're so fortunate to have the PMC crew like we do.
Yeah, we've got a lot of people in our little crew that can critique teams. So, yeah, I'm really pleased with the way this episode turned out, man. I think this is something we wanted to talk about for such a long time, but we weren't sure how to kind of structure it.
And it's just so important, whether you're a new player, an experienced one, or if you're like a lifelong veteran like us, in terms of your knowledge or skill base or whatever. It doesn't matter. This is the way. These are the ways to approach Pokemon, and these aren't the only ways. But these are
there's tons of different ways too. Like, these are just our favorites. Yeah, I would say.
And like, you could base a team around Trick Room, like a theme. You could base a team around terrain.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Electric terrain with
like seeds.
Psychic terrain. Yeah, psychic terrain with the expanding force. Like, there's so many different themes that you can do. Like we mentioned, Trick Room, that's a theme.
Yeah.
The rain, that's kind of a theme where you take like a theme of a type of
like a concept or yeah.
Just theme teams in general. There's cores, offensive or defensive or typing. There's, like Brandon said, with the top down, you take a poke that you want to feature, make everything else fit around it and the meta. There's so many, but those are the three main ways that you'll see competitive players build teams.
Yeah. Yep.
Themed teams, featured mons, and then cohesive cores.
Yep. Cool. Yeah. Couldn't have said it better myself, man. You nailed it.
Anything else you want to touch on today? I think this is a great episode. We really, really, really hope that you guys have and gals have learned something today. Again, we tried to make this more. We will do episodes in the future that are more geared towards a specific format. This one, obviously, we mentioned all three of the major formats: Smogon, 3v3, and VGC, because we wanted to make sure that
that worked out perfectly. We told three main formats with three different team styles. That ended up being really perfect.
Absolutely.
So no, I got nothing else to say, man. I thought this was awesome. I think we both did a good job.
We hope that today we earned your subscription. Hit that red button if you are subscribed. Make sure you ring the bell. That way you get notified every time we put up a new podcast or any other content to the channel. Leave a comment down below. What is your favorite way to build a team? What out of these three main formats, are you the featured mon? Are you the cohesive core? Or are you the I want to run a themed team?
Yeah.
Which one are you? Let us know down below. And if you have any questions, concerns, comments, let us know. And also, like Brandon said, if you have teams that you want advice or maybe just to show off, like, hey, look what I came up with, post those down below. We would love to have some teams to go through and talk about. So definitely thumbs up the video and comment down below. It really helps the channel, and it really gives us some feedback that we can improve in the future. And we want to have community outreach with you guys.
Yeah.
So.
No, awesome, man. Let's get out of here, dude. I've been Zero.
I'm Justin.
Class is dismissed.